Hello, welcome back. It's Louisa Tanner Munson from Feel Good Astrology. I can see I've got someone watching. It's so funny because I haven't even advertised this. So let me know who you are. It may well be my husband just watching me from upstairs. Who knows? So I'm just checking the audio is working perfectly. Now, how is it for you? Like, how have you been? Like, today is a massive reset day. And a lot of people that I've been speaking to have been coming in. Oh, I've got 4 people watching. Hello, let me know where you're watching in from. Um, Today is a reset day, and I want to. It's me, Penny Abatella. Hello, how are you? It's lovely to be connected with you again. We had such a lovely time with your family. It was gorgeous to see you all. So yeah, it's a time of resets. Like, we are in the middle, right slap bang in the middle of Venus retrograde now. And today, Venus has gone from being an evening star to a morning star, i.e., you can now see her rising in the morning sky. You can still see like the little Venus star in the sky first thing in the morning, in a way that you used to see her in the evening sky. Now, that might not sound that interesting or remarkable to you, but it's part of an ever repeating cycle. So we have the morning star Venus for 9 months of the year, and then we have the evening star Venus for 9 months of the year. And each of these Venus star positions represents a different quality of Venus. So today we are going to have a look at the different qualities of Venus and look at what is resetting today. It's also a really special day because, like, when a planet goes into an exact conjunction with the sun, we get this really strong energy of that planet. And so today we've got a really sort of like Venus planet day. So it's been great for sort of creativity, great for reconnection, great for flow, and great for, I would say, compassion and kindness, and good times. It's great. Today we went to a gig. We went out for the afternoon. We met up with some friends, and we saw this really lovely band play. And the great thing about it was there was just this lovely atmosphere of people all just connecting and doing their thing. And it was very much like, well, I just felt like humans, coming together and I don't know, celebrating being alive. It just felt really good. So yeah, I'm going to have a look at the new Venus chart. I'm going to look at the chart from when Venus went into her morning star position and talk about what might be occurring from that position. Like, how are we resetting ourselves with the Venus energy, and a little bit about the morning star position. I'm also going to have a look at somebody else's chart, for one of those let me take a look at your chart moments. And normally me and Mr. M, that's my husband, Carl, we do usually have a look at an astrological song, and we analyze how, sorry about the dogs barking in the background. We analyze how, like the lyrics of the song, are they in astrological integrity or not? However, we're starting to run out a little bit. Not many people are coming to us and saying, hey, do this song, do that song. And so I think we're just going to have a little chat about, what's going on in the world. What are we perceiving? I don't know about you, and I'd love to hear what your experience is, right now. This Venus retrograde has really got me pondering. And to be fair, it's occurring in a very prominent part of my chart. It's pretty much going retrograde right over my midheaven. So from the 10th house back into the 9th house. And every 8 years, Venus is going retrograde at exactly this point for 40 days and 40 nights. And whilst I can vaguely remember what was going on 8 years ago and 16 years ago and 24 years ago, it's, there's this kind of freshness in understanding. We have to still experience these things in real time. And the North Node has just changed signs as well. And so I think in these moments in time where things are just in this kind of situational flux, it creates a whole new vibration, a whole new dynamic. And so, yeah, there's a lot of new things I'm thinking about right now. And like I said, I don't know what it's like for you. I mean, Penny, I know you're watching. How is life changing for you right now? What's new and what's on your agenda? So just let me know where you're listening in from. If you've got an astrological question for me, especially a Venus related one, and we'll get on. Penny's just letting me know. She's saying my sun sign Taurus and rising sign Libra are both Venus ruled. Yep. How does this chasme? A chasme is like, when a planet goes exact with the sun. How does it impact me? I wonder. Well, here's the funny thing. Like Penny's a very, very creative person. She she's said that she's got her Taurus sun and she's also got her rising sign in Libra, both of which are ruled by Venus. So Venus is like the most creative planet. And her like the Casimir Venus is taking place in her 11th house, which is all about collaborating with other people and the kind of joys, I guess, of what happens when it's your energy plus somebody else's energy. And so with this whole Venus retrograde that's been going on, I would imagine, I don't know if it started in your 12th and into your 11th, or if it's starting in your 11th and going into your 10th, because I haven't got your chart right in front of me. But I would imagine that the whole nature of where you've collaborated with other people and good things have happened through connecting and working together have happened. I'm guessing that all of that is coming up right now for you to sort of assess and analyze and work through. It's quite an intense time. Anyway, let's have a look at our charts. So we've got Gillian Alexander joining us tonight as well. Hello, Gillian. How are you doing? How are you enjoying life right now? Are you feeling connected to things? So first thing that I want to show you then tonight is the Venus morning star. So, Venus changed. I mean, she's still retrograde. So, at the start of her retrograde, she started about here at 28 degrees. And she's heading back on this 28 degrees is here. And she's heading backwards roughly to 12 degrees in the sign of Leo. But today she just crossed the face of the sun. And in crossing the sun, she is now known as being the morning Venus, and she's showing up in the morning, not in the evening, in our skies. Now, the morning Venus is known as being a lot more practical. The morning Venus is known for absolutely getting what she needs. She's the practical Venus, like the evening Venus that we've just been associated with. She is very much about I would say she's more like the spiritual Venus, which is talking about, hey, let's forgive, let's forget, let's do this, let's do that. Very much about the sort of collective, and it's really not taking that much ownership. The morning Venus is really quite proactive. She's a lot more abundant. She's a lot more daring in achieving things. She's a lot more attached to her to the material wealth that comes her way. She's a lot more of a go-getter than the evening Venus. So immediately with this new position of Venus, I'm thinking we're heading into collectively this time where we're going to start to appreciate A, our bodies, B, our money, and C, the actual outcomes of the flow that we have in our life and how we're engaging. So I think that's all really, really good. Now, at the time that she came into a conjunction with the sun, she's in this lovely trine with Aries. So there it is. Chiron in Aries, and Chiron's the wounded healer. So there's this, as she's getting more direct, I think we are absolutely embodying the healing energies that are around right now and really wanting to kind of knock an old pattern on the head in quite a physical way, and to really feel the benefits of it. It's very much about owning our discomfort and our disease. So we're not just talking about it in the spiritual stratosphere. We're now actually realizing we might need to take some practical action, and we're prepared to do it. She's also in a square to Uranus in Taurus at 2256, and she's also in a square with Jupiter. So this Jupiter Uranus square I'm going to do some recording about, because it's a long, slow square. It's coming into its square, and it will be exact in April. of 2024. But it's a very, very creative time. So I think with this reset Venus energy that we're going through, this Casimir Venus, where we can really be creative and really set our goals on something really quite unique and quite abundant and quite flowing. One of the themes of this, I would say, is the opportunity to expand and to reach out to people a lot more. I would not be surprised at all to hear that there are a lot more people wanting to reach out through podcast and YouTube and like TikTok. I mean, a lot of these things have really facilitated an opening up of truth and an opening up of excitement and an opening up of the law of attraction and energy and the whole idea of let's kind of ignite the world with our ideas. It's like a massive mutual sharing. So I do think with this Venus reset that we're going through right now, that there's going to be this interesting new, not obligation, but this real kind of outpouring of sharing about truth and about what sets us alight, what feels really integral. I'm really quite excited about it. And then Vesta, which is about, like she's the goddess of the hearth. She is absolutely about our integrity. She is, she's great. She's a little bit like the seers in that film Minority Report, the three women who are bald in a pool that see everything. But, like those seers, they are absolutely connected to kind of everything. Like they can see everything, they know the truth of everything. And they feel it with such a veracity that becomes something so much more than just the truth. It becomes truth plus the knowledge and awareness of the truth. And so with this Venus energy that's coming in right now, I just really feel that, yes, we've got a knowledge and an awareness of what the truth might be. And also we've got this desire to share these ideas. And I have to say, this came in exactly in the middle of the around midday today. That's London and Portugal time. I don't know which time zone you're listening from, but I have to say around this time, I had some like fresh insights into things that have been maybe playing out in my mind, in the back of my mind. I've been wondering about things. And all of a sudden there's like this renewed clarity and a renewed, I'm going to say fire again, even though, I know Venus, as she's going, as she's making this Casimir in the sign of Leo, it is in a fire sign, but I don't really feel that Venus is particularly fiery. But the morning star Venus does have something, to kind of like whoosh her into action. Last couple of thoughts then about this sort of energy reset. I would say we've also got some lovely aspects here. So the moon is in a sextile to Jupiter and Uranus. So there's this Cancer Taurus energy as well, which I always think of as being very persistent and kind and familiar. And then they've also got this Jupiter, Uranus, Mars and Mercury and Pallas Athena trine, which I think is really quite beautiful. And it's also tying in with Pluto. So we've got this very grand sort of earth energy, which is very, very grounding. So I just think in this next 9 months, as Venus is in her morning star position, that we're going to be not just fired up and ready to go and achieve things that are really in alignment with who we are, but I actually think that we're going to have the grounding to be able to do something about what we're realizing. I don't think we're just going to have these like random spontaneous thoughts and think, wow, isn't that interesting? I actually think what's going on is that we're going to have the wherewithal to do something about it. So that's my thoughts about the sort of resetting of energy today. And I can see someone's just liked that. So somebody really liked what I've just put in there. I wonder what it was that I said that resonated with you. It's so funny because I really wasn't sure about going live tonight because I hadn't advertised the show, and I have to say I'm feeling a little bit worn out from quite a a social month, like with Venus retrograde. Everything about our social life is just slightly different. And although, my husband and I've got quite social jobs, working with people and whatnot, and, we're online quite a bit, interacting with people, we're actually quite quiet when we're not online and when we're not working. And so we were actually planning throughout August to have a really quiet, we actually called it our austerity August. We were thinking of locking ourselves away and just kind of taking some time for us and the family and not being so involved in other people. And the funny thing is I always think what happens is what's best. The really funny thing is we've been pulled back into socializing. We've had 3 or 4 different sets of visits from people coming to stay, and it's been great. We've really enjoyed it. And it's been an absolute surprise. It's probably not quite how we would have worked it out for ourselves, and yet it's felt really good. And of course, once you're interacting with people, a lot of new ideas come up. So I'm very grateful for it, actually. So again, I wonder what is going on for you right now. Anyway, what I'm keen to do now is to actually have a look at the chart that I'm going to be looking at. So, I'm not going to reveal the name of this person. They've indicated that they'd like me to have a look at their chart, but I didn't say, yes, I'm going to go live with it tonight. So, yeah, so this is a mystery chart. I will reveal it's a man, and he's 53, I think. So I'm going to have a look at his chart. And he hasn't really said he wants to know about anything in particular. So I'm just going to have a look at his chart and just talk about some of the energies that I see in it. And, maybe if you're aware of astrology and how it's all formulated, like with the angles here. So we've got the ascendant in the sign of Scorpio. We've got the descendant in the sign of Taurus. And look what's there right on his descendant right now. That's Uranus. That's quite exciting. And he's got his midheaven, the MC at the top in the sign of Leo, and his IC, the angle, all to do with the home and the 4th house in the sign of Aquarius. So let's have a look. So this person is a Sagittarius, and he's got his moon in Aquarius, which is really interesting because, his sun is quite philosophical and quite aspiring, like laid back for sure. The Sagittarius energy is pretty laid back, wants to have fun, wants to be kind of convivial. But I would say there's not so much of a striving. And yet with his ascendant in the sign of Scorpio, there is this kind of feeling of, I don't want to be too laid back. I don't want to miss opportunities. I do want to, I guess, create something. It does actually create striving. Like his sun is in the 2nd house, and the 2nd house sun is, there is a need for I would say the energy of what he does to have an output. It really feels like he wants to do something. And then he's got his moon in the sign of Aquarius, very, very close to the IC. And, my husband and I, we've both got moons very close to our IC. And one of the things I know about the moon in the 4th is that it creates a lot of movement in terms of the way we live. The 4th house that I'm being joined here by Kitten. We've got 2 here at the moment. Say hello. The 4th house is all about how we live, and how we share, and what we're learning about intimacy, and what we're learning about our personal space. And this person's got his moon there, really showing that you get a lot more out of him when you're actually in his own home. So if you know him socially, if you know him out and about, you'll get a sense of him, but you really don't get a sense of just how different he is until you're actually in his home, experiencing him on a day-to-day level. You get your best out of somebody with the 4th house moon when you're in their home and when you see them on a day-to-day level. It's almost like he can't fully express himself sufficiently that you would get the understanding of him until you are like with him in a kind of routine way. And so people with their 4th house moon, I think they nearly always do better when they go into live-in relationships as soon as possible. Now, I don't know much about his past, but I do know that he's been married for what seems like a gazillion years. He's been married pretty much all his adult life, so, he's a family man and a committed husband. Now, in the sign of Aquarius, it's interesting because like both Sagittarius and Aquarius have got this reputation for being quite non-attached. They've got this kind of slightly philosophical, slightly, yeah, whatever kind of thing. They don't tend to personalize things too much. I would say with this guy's ascendant in the sign of Scorpio, there's quite a bit of personalization going on. However, his moon is very, very strong in this sign of Aquarius, and his IC, like the angle to do with his home, is also in Aquarius. So I would say that his home represents a place where he can actually be his truth. And actually, you might not get to know his truth, like I say, until you see him in his home. I would say this person is a lot more open-minded and a lot more kind of curious and philosophical, but also not so fixed. Like the sign of, the people that I know that have got the moon in Aquarius, and I've got a sun with this position as well. What I know about them is they've got this ability to really pick up on languages and codes. So, first of all, Aquarius is one of these signs that is really highlighted in the charts of astrologers, because of our understanding of symbols and patterns and like the mathematics of it and how it all fits together. But it's also really high in the charts of people who've got a good sense of programming. They've got a good sense of what's turned on, what's turned off, and how systems work. So even though the moon is there to show us how we're relating to something emotionally and spiritually and at a soul level, this is somebody who's looking at the patterns of it. This is somebody who's always trying to get closer and closer to the truth through the patterns. So it's less about feeling the truth, but it's more about observing the truth of the patterns and seeing what's going on. And I think those that live with him will really see that. And, people with the moon in the sign of Aquarius can seem really uncommitted. They can seem really, I don't want to say, uncommitted is probably not the right word, but they're committed in a different way. They maybe seem a little bit like they're off on their own little intellectual journey. Sometimes it might seem like they might be a bit autistic or, not quite feeling things fully in their body. It's almost like information hits a rational side of them, a kind of, I want to observe this and see how this pattern sits. And so it almost doesn't touch their feelings. And then you wonder, how far deep do I have to go before I find some feelings? And the truth is, yes, these people do feel things just like everybody does. However, they actually prefer not to feel things. They prefer to trust the patterns. They prefer to recognize things. And the moment they are feeling it, they're trying to explain it away. So, yeah, it's kind of fascinating to me to see somebody who is, married for so long in a committed relationship with this moon in this position, in this highly personalized position. Now, this person obviously has a very strong need to have children. I believe he's had his children now, and will be very, very much invested in them. And I would say he's got a very friendly and proactive relationship with his children. It's not about ruling it over them and saying this is what you need to do. Absolutely not. This is a relationship based on truth, and it's philosophical, and it's about enabling the next generation. It's about enabling the next level of skills in the next generation. And this Ceres here is in a lovely connection to his son. So, I would imagine that he leads his children by example, but in a way that's not kind of like lording it over them. He's very much about keeping a balance, showing him where he's individual and showing them how they're individual. The Venus here is really nice. He's got a lovely sextile to the moon. And also a lovely sextile to Ceres. So again, I would say, I don't suppose there were very many difficulties preventing a pregnancy or preventing raising children or preventing him from falling in love. These are all very sort of easy. He's also got Neptune and Venus in the first house, which again is very deeply romantic. So this is a bit of this is probably something that his wife will laugh about. You know, it's how is somebody who is so kind of naturally romantic and creative and quite dreamy about a lot of things, how is he also very analytical and maybe only allows you to get so deep? And the funny thing is, you know, actually when you get that deep into the level of analysis and to the level of his understanding of patterns and things like that, and his very unique way of seeing the world, you might think, you might feel a bit shortchanged, but the person that actually does love him actually realizes he's actually a bit of a genius. And when you see that level of genius in the way he's thinking and observing patterns, that is at the core of who he is. And actually that's, you know, that's why I think the people that really know him see that he is really quite wired in a different way. Now, this person, I mean, there's so many different things I would, you know, pick to talk about his chart, but I really want to be quite practical. And so the next thing I'm going to do is just look at, you know, I've spoken about the sun and the moon. Haven't spoken a bit about his angles. His angles are in the fixed signs, which will give him a lot more of a steadying energy. But with his moon also in the sign of, you know, a fixed sign, I would say he's quite steady actually with his Scorpio rising. I mean, even though he's got his sun in the sign of Sagittarius, which is really taking him off on little journeys and distractions and things, these angles are keeping him quite tethered in quite a great way. Now he's got this aspect of Jupiter and Saturn here in opposition. He's got a few big oppositions between these outer planets, and these are very much of the time. You know, he was born at the end of the 60s. So Jupiter and Saturn in the opposition is quite an interesting one. You know, I always see them, I always see Jupiter Saturn connections in people who will progress at some level, even in the squares and in the oppositions, because, you know, Jupiter is essentially about progress and moving on and expanding, and Saturn, you know, is also about that. However, Saturn sort of expands in kind of an agreed and boundaried way, you know. So when somebody expands in a Saturn way, they'll be thinking about the next level and they'll know the exact parameters of that next level. So I think his expansion would have been very easy and interesting. You know, it would have been small steps, you know, quite consistently throughout his life. Now, one thing I would say is when something outer and quite serious is over one of these planets, then he probably goes through quite a rush of sudden either sudden expansion or a sudden, like, oh my god, like a loss of faith, because Jupiter and Saturn, they are kind of working against each other. There is this, you know, I want to expand and I want to be really good. And they're kind of going, I want to be quality, I want to expand really quickly, and they're kind of working slightly in you know, they're in opposition and they're kind of challenging each other. But again, I as difficult as this opposition can be, I know lots of people who get beyond it, so I'm not so worried about it, if that makes sense. Now, Pluto opposite Chiron and also Uranus opposite Chiron, they're difficult. They're not easy to process, I would say. They're very much the product of people in the 60s, being born in the mid 60s. Pluto is about control and Uranus is our need for freedom and to be very much ourselves. Both of them in opposition to Chiron is almost showing that other people's hurts and other people's concerns are impacting our life and impacting how much control we have on them and also how much freedom we have. So you may well find, you know, with these oppositions, that being free, being able to be completely free, is somehow dependent on other people's hurts and upsets, which in turn causes you a hurt and upset. And then it's like, oh, I'm feeling hurt and upset. How can I get free of this? And it's like this continuous battle. It's not very easy. One thing I like about the position of this is these two are actually quite away from each other. He's born at the end of the 60s, literally about to go into 1970. During the mid 60s, these two were right together, and that was very, very difficult. So he's at the easier end of it. And you could say that the previous 5 years have really taken on a lot of that energy for him. They've started to sow it into the ether, into the generation of Generation X and Gen X. So, it's almost like he's not having to do it on his own. It's already in the kind of collective programming of kids growing up at that time. So I do think, like many other Gen Xers, that he's having to find control in life and find freedom in life from his hurt parents and hurt, the sort of the people in his landscape that are controlling how he lives, are creating a sense of frustration because he can't have control over his life and also can't quite get that freedom. And so in respect of that, his life is kind of, I guess, making sense of that. So there's a lot going on. Now, what I'm most interested in is what's going on right now for him. And this is a really exciting time. Now, it's not necessarily an easy time. He's got Uranus, which is the ruler of his home, and his intimacy, I guess you could say. And that's right now over his descendant. That's quite difficult. I've recently had that over my descendant over the last 2 years, and it's starting to ease off now. But it really shows up that it feels like people in our life are not quite as consistent as they have been in the past. So, it's all about our partners, and our expectations for our partners. And yet all of a sudden it feels like they're a bit of a rogue element. So he may well find that the people in his life, whether it's his wife or his children or the people he's working with, are very different, and are challenging and bringing up a lot of projections for him. What I know about him and his work, Uranus is very much about astrology. It's very much about crypto. It's very much about coding. It's also about, I would say, like rewriting the mind so it can tie into hypnotherapy and things like that. And it's also associated with the New Age. It's also associated with sovereignty, prepping, all sorts of different things where we're trying to find independence and freedom. So what shows up here also shows the kinds of people we're attracting right now. So I think, if he's lucky, then what's going on right now is that he's attracting a lot of independent flavors into his life. The kind of people that are wanting to be a bit rebellious, wanting to live outside of narratives and things like that. I always think when something big is going over one of our angles, that we need to start to attract in that energy consciously ourselves, like do a project that might use that energy rather than do nothing. Because I think when we don't do anything, then that energy uses us. So, the wave of change energy coming into partners in his life right now, if he's not actively working in a way to attract more Uranian partners in his life, then life will give him very upsetting, confrontational, chaotic partners. So, from what I know about his work, he's attracting them in. And hopefully that's enough to stop everybody else being a little bit disruptive. But it's quite a big aspect, and it shows at some level, because I always think what's going on here is also going, like we're also, projecting what's going on here into ourselves. So at some level, he's looking for some disruption. This is somebody who's maybe had life a little bit too safe. He's somebody who wants to have a little bit of excitement, and so he's being a bit more risque in the way he lives his life. So, I see that's good. He's got his South Node conjunct Jupiter, just here. It's just separating. And he's also got his North Node conjunct Saturn. So the North and South Node are in opposition, and we've got Jupiter and Saturn in opposition. So in the last month or two, I think he's made some progress in terms of what he wants to succeed in. versus how he wants to grow. And he's noticing that the expansion is the easy part. He's very happy with the expansion because it feels easy to be jovial and fun. And then the more challenging thing is, how do I grow with some kind of structure? So that's something that's going on. And then he's got Neptune in a conjunction with Chiron, which is coming in at the moment. So where's his Chiron? It's down here. So this is something that's a little bit away, but it's something that's coming up into his consciousness, which is a lot of healing energy coming to maybe rescue him from some of the coding of being an early Gen Xer. And then in the bigger news, we've got Pluto right down here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's coming up, and it will be coming up to his IC. Now, it's already in a conjunction there, but not exact. And I always think when that happens, it's like you're hearing it in the news, you know it's in the post, but it hasn't been delivered yet. So he's got a little bit of a run up to it, but it's indicating a certain level of change in the way he's living. And not just like, I say a little bit of change, I'm talking big changes. It could be him and his family all uprooting and moving somewhere completely different. Now, obviously, that would be confirmed in the charts of everyone else, but it's showing a significant change that is destabilizing the stability that he's got in his current life, and creating the impetus to create something completely new. And of course, those roots, like if we were to move a plant in our back garden, now plants don't just move themselves, unless they do, and I haven't realized it yet, but plants don't like to be moved. Like you have to dig out all their roots and then put them back in, and they die back. Often if I'm transplanting something, I cut down all the growth on top of the ground, so that they can put all of their energy into the roots and get stabilized and then grow from there. So what I'm seeing right now is he's in a, he's not so rooted. He's been very rooted, and maybe his roots have grown too big where he is. And now it's time to start to consciously uproot himself. And it's gonna cause a little bit of change. The most, the next big thing, I guess, is Saturn coming into his North Node. Saturn's here right now, and in the next year, it's going to be in a conjunction with his North Node. So I see that these energies are all going off at the same time. This is a big life change he's going through. And, it's putting him on a path of achievement, a path of spirituality, and a really deep path of creativity. So it feels like finally, after many years of doing things a certain way, he's now getting the chance to be deeply creative and to see where that takes him. So it's all very, very cool. Anyway, I think it's time to bring on Mr. M, because he's sitting patiently next to me. Let's get that extra camera up. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Good evening.
That sounds great.
What happened to our system where we could both see the same screen?
I don't know.
You're very big in the screen tonight, aren't you? Sorry, I'm just seeing things that as well as turning this into a music show, I'm now being an executive producer live on air. Do beg your pardon.
You're just like complaining about everything.
I'm sorry.
So, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
Now, before we go any further,
can I have the mouse so I can tweak a few things while you're warming me up, as it were?
Well, I was just about to read off some comments.
Oh, sorry. Go on then.
You're ruining that for me.
I set something up, didn't I, so that we could both look into the camera, and not be tempted to look at each other.
And the thing is, even though we're sat next to each other and we can actually look into,
we're going cross-eyed. We're looking at each other, and then when we do, we're looking away from each other.
Okay, let's.
That's better, isn't it?
Yeah. Oops. Hang on.
Oh dear. It's all about the preparation.
Yeah, it is.
And presentation.
So let's see what's coming in. So we've got.
Oh, Nikki's here.
Yeah, we've got loads of people.
Nubinette.
So Penny,
Juliet, Sarah.
You're ruining. You're just like a live wire, aren't you? No. So anyway, do you want to read these out?
It's been a giggly. No, you carry on. I've got a couple of things to do here. I found a really great article.
Yeah.
Sitting in the little chair. Yeah. Well,
why do you look so far away? We both set the same
Because
distance.
you've zoomed in. If you notice, that sign actually says on air, not just air.
So yeah, so what's happened
That's
there?
why I'm going to tweak when you finish reading the comments.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
we don't need to draw too much attention to it.
What, the fact that I've got a massive head next to your tiny
And it's
one?
normally the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Let's face it.
I look like a giant.
You do.
Oh my goodness.
You do.
Anyway, Penny is saying, we got an offer for our cottage last Tuesday on Lionsgate
Excellent.
Portal Day. Still very conflicted as I don't really want to leave it.
Hmm.
Well, congratulations. And we've got like a clap from Sarah Taylor. I don't know if that's to your brilliant news or just that, you know, life is good. Who knows? But yeah, we'll have to have a look at that for you, Penny, if that's helpful. Julian saying that's interesting. Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Neptune in the 4th house. Haha. No wonder I'm very open in sharing my home space. And Penny saying, me. I'm a Moon in Aquarius. Now, Penny, what I said about Moon in Aquarius, that, you know, people are quite, you know, they're kind of coded a bit differently, and possibly don't always. You're stealing my mouse. Don't always. Where's the other mouse? Is that cat sitting on it?
No, and that's another thing about this studio.
It's like
a witch's coven in here. There's a black cat. Is there a broomstick parked up somewhere?
Only up your bottom.
So it would appear I'm making you small on the screen now. You said that.
How did you do that?
Like this, look, there we go. The great equalizer. Oh, and now there's a plant pot. In the way of Nair. Well, I'm glad to see Win Nair. Yeah. And where's your screen surround? What's going on tonight? It's just very, very unusual, irregular. You know me, I'm a Cancerian.
You're really crabby.
I'm not at all crabby. Okay. I'm just noticing.
Okay.
I'm thrown.
Now? Where's my mouse gone? Did you turn it off?
No, it's on this screen here, and you just need to bring it across to that one there.
Oh my goodness! So we've had updates going on here.
Clearly, my software's been changed, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're losing people in the chat room.
We're not.
Anyway, hello there, Newbie. Thanks for joining us from. Is it San Francisco? Is that where you are? San Fran. We got Nikki joining us with hearts and prayers and rainbows and stuff. And yeah, Newbie is saying, are you sat in the funny chair and the naughty chair? We got Red Bunny Classic. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what, Red Bunny Classic? I've never seen you before. Where are you from?
Me neither.
What's brought you
Intrigued
here tonight?
By the name.
So anyway, we've been going through some changes, haven't we?
Yes. It's okay. It's not a Chris Martin and what's the name style conscious uncoupling announcement.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
You just talk to me like Holly Willoughby, didn't you? We've been going through some changes, haven't we, Philip? It's not that sort of announcement that's about to be made, is it?
No.
Okay.
What are you doing now?
I'm making this work in the way that we agreed. Is that okay? So I can now look at my camera.
Okay.
And you can look at yours.
Okay.
Even though you're not.
Just stop fiddling.
Okay, I'm done now. So I'm done with the fiddling.
What did you want to talk about? Like the whole purpose of you being here.
What is that cable? There's a cable. This is unbelievable. If Lord Beaverbrook sees this, we're in big trouble.
What? Who's Lord Beaverbrook?
I'm just imagining we've got a publisher who is, like our Murdoch or something behind our channel, who's seeing the strange production values of our show this evening.
Are you referring to those cables?
There's cables saying
to the left.
There's a cat on the desk. Yes.
Well, it's you that put those.
I did put them there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there would be this
visual. Okay.
Shot tonight.
So but anyway, yeah. You came on to talk about.
I've got another curveball for you.
Oh God.
Yeah. There's something in the air tonight, isn't there?
What is your curveball?
I mean, it really feels.
You wanted to come on to talk about all things that you were interested in.
Yeah, and something. Oh, thank you very much. Red Bunny Classic likes our cable hanging up in the background. That's great. Thank you. I think we've well and truly exhausted astrology in popular music, haven't we?
We probably haven't. There's probably a rich seam somewhere, but we just haven't tapped into it.
Is it just us that's exhausted?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we may return to that then, listening for signs. And tonight, I was thinking, what I wanted to do is expand that possibly, with your permission, of course, because it's your show.
Of course, go do it.
Astrology and popular culture, because that's where that began, wasn't it? And I typed that into a search engine, and what came up was why are millennials so into astrology, and an article in the Atlantic. So, will you permit me to read some of that?
Yeah, of course.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the problem with it, of course, is that with the Atlantic, you only get, it's a bit like the Telegraph and the Times and all these
You
sorts
get
of
a very
people.
liberal view mindset.
No,
No?
not in the Telegraph. You get only one chance to look at the article, and then you're up against the paywall.
Okay.
So even in the time that I've been looking at it, I might not have. I mean, I can't get in at all now to this blooming article, but I'm trying my best to do that.
Okay.
And hopefully, no, I might have found myself the wrong side of a paywall, but I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again and see how we get on. It's the New Age of Astrology, it's called.
Okay.
And it is by a Julie Beck. All right. So, and it's one of those in the Atlantic. I think it's, it leans towards old school journalism, long feature pieces. It's in health. Well, I can read it for you. Unless you want to see it on the screen as well, do you?
No, just...
in a stressful, data-driven era, many young people find comfort and insight in the zodiac. And get this. I guess this is a bit of a clickbaity subheading. Yeah. Even if they don't exactly believe in it. So you might say it's like gravity.
Yep.
Might you? It's like you don't have to, but scientists say that, don't you? You have to believe in it. It just because it works anyway. Yeah. So we could copy that thought, couldn't we, with astrology? Mm-hmm. And then Julie Beck goes on to say, astrology is a meme, and it's spreading in that blooming, and blooming not in the British sense, blooming as in the floral sense, unfurling way that memes do. As in viral, is another way of saying viral, isn't it? On social media, astrologers and astrology meme machines amass tens of hundreds of thousands of followers, don't you?
Not me.
People joke about Mercury retrograde. That's common, just like almost in the normal sense of humor, now the mainstream sense of humor, and categorize the signs as literally anything: cat breeds, Oscar Wilde quotes, Stranger Things characters, types of French fries. Not seen that one.
No.
Although there is a link to it. Inline publications, daily, weekly, and monthly horoscopes, and zodiac-themed listicles flourish. Do you know what a listicle is?
Nope.
Guess it's a small list.
Okay.
This isn't the first moment astrology's had, and it won't be the last. The practice has been around in various forms for thousands of years. More recently, and everyone watching, I know, knows this bit. Been around for thousands of years, and there have been, spikes of popularity. But this would appear to be one of them. More recently, the New Age movement of the 1960s and the 70s came with a heaping helping of the zodiac.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there I'm having my version of it blocked because I've already looked at it once. Are you able to see it now?
I've got it on the screen.
Fantastic. Well, I don't know if you want to continue reading it and we can look at it together.
So in the decades between the New Age boom and now, while astrology certainly didn't go away, you could still regularly find horoscopes in the back pages of magazines. It went back to being a little bit more in the background, says Shani Nicholas, an astrologer based in LA. Mm-hmm. Then there's something that's happened in the last 5 years that's given its edginess, a relevance for this time and place that it hasn't had for a good 35 years. Millennials have taken it and run with it.
And do you recognize that? Are you seeing that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, I've noticed it really coming up again in popularity in the last couple of years.
Right.
And I think people who watch stuff on Instagram and TikTok, they're really, it's a really great medium for sharing short messages, isn't it?
Mm.
So anyway, over the past 2 years, and they've said that as well, past 2 years, we've really seen a reframing of the New Age practices, very much geared towards a millennial and young Gen X quotidian.
You went French there. I've got that as quotient.
Oh, quotient.
But you went with the quotidien, didn't you?
Quotidien. Yeah, okay, yeah. Lucy Green, the worldwide director of J. Walter Thompson's intelligence group, which
that sounds like a sinister group of individuals.
It does, and predicts cultural trends. Callie, a senior editor at Broadly, says traffic for the site's horoscope has really grown exponentially. Stella Bugby. These all sound like made-up names, don't they?
Sort of thing I would write. An April 1st piece.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The president and editor-in-chief of The Cut says the typical horoscope post on a site has got 150% more traffic in 2017 than the year before. Well, that's a massive shift.
Right. Keep going, because there are some fascinating things. Okay. So should we do a paragraph each?
Yeah, go on then.
You don't want me to do.
Go on.
In astrology, what? No, in some ways, astrology is perfectly suited to the internet age, for the internet age. There's a low barrier to entry, and I'm sure that's not meant badly, and nearly endless depths to plumb if you feel like falling down a Google research hole.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of not damned by faint praise. I think that's a kind of compliment, a backhanded compliment, isn't there? That it is a rich theme when you start to look beyond the sun signs and the superficial mainstream treatment. You do find a major research hole, as they put it.
Well, one of the things that I think is really great about astrologers in general is that, you know, there's and people that like astrology is that they tend to be people that like to share information. And so there's a lot of people blogging about it, sharing information in podcasts and videos and stuff. And basically just sharing everything that they're noticing about patterns, and answering questions. You know, I guess before we moved to Portugal, I used to go on the forums quite a lot and post questions and share in the research. It's pretty quite useful.
Okay, and thank you, Gillian. There is something so soothing listening to you two. Isn't that lovely?
Well, after we start
we are the Richard and Judy of the new age, maybe. Okay, so the availability of more in-depth information. Hey, Owen. The availability of more in-depth information online.
Yeah.
Where was I? Has given this cultural wave of astrology a certain erudition. More jokes about Saturn returns, fewer "Hey baby, what's your sign?" pickup lines, and that's really where we were, wasn't it? With a lot of the songs, it was superficial. It was songwriters just liking the fact that Aquarius rhymed with Sagittarius, etc., etc. A quick primer then: astrology is not a science, says Judy Beck, who is probably not a scientist. She's a journalist. There is no evidence that that's hyperlinked in case you want to check for yourself. There's no, but it's very. It sounds very definitive.
I bet it will go to Snopes.
Exactly. So we don't even need to check, do we? Snopes have said there's no evidence, and it's not a science. That one zodiac sign actually correlates to personality, but the system has its own sort of logic. Again, this is somebody. I get the feeling that Julie Beck loves astrology. She wanted to write about it in The Atlantic, but the tough old gnarly editor said, "You better not say it's a science." So here's that paragraph.
Or I think this is somebody who has been asked to write it and didn't want to write it.
Do you think so? Let's see then what happens. We've got a kind of listening for science.
What do you think?
We could do this. Is a new feature, isn't it? Does the journalist like or dislike astrology despite what they've written? But the system has its own sort of logic. Astrology ascribes meaning to the placement of the sun, the moon, and the planets within 12 sections of the sky, the signs of the zodiac. You likely know your sun sign, the most famous zodiac sign, even if you're not an astrology buff. It's based on where the sun was on your birthday, but the placement of the moon and each of the other planets at the time and location of your birth adds additional shades to the picture of you painted by your birth chart. In bunny ears.
Yes. Okay. So what horoscopes are supposed to do is give information about what the planets are doing right now and in the future and how all of that affects each sign. Think of the planets as a cocktail party.
I like this. I do like this analogy.
Yeah. Okay. Explains Susan Miller, the popular astrologer who founded the Astrology Zone website. You might have 3 people talking together, 2 maybe in the corner arguing. That could be us 2 doing a live stream
at a party.
Venus and Mars may be kissing each other. I have to make sense of those conversations that are happening each month for you.
Do you not like that analogy?
No, that's good.
And then somebody walks past in the far distance, you know, that is representing something else going on. I quite like that idea.
Yeah. Astrologers are always trying to boil down these giant concepts into digestible pieces of knowledge, says Nicholas. The kids these days and their memes are like the perfect context for astrology.
Yeah. Astrology expresses complex ideas about personality, life cycles, and relationship patterns through the shorthand of the planets and zodiac symbols. And that shorthand works well online, where symbols and shorthand are often baked into communication.
Yeah, if you think about emojis, people are learning to associate images and symbols together.
So she's onto something, isn't she? Perhaps a little bit tenuously, but I see what's being said here by Julie Beck.
Go on.
Let me state first that I consider astrology a cultural or a psychological phenomenon, not a scientific one, says Bertram Marley, a social cognitive scientist at Brown University who gets paid to say stuff like that.
Told me in an email.
Yes, but full-fledged astrology that goes beyond, I mean, this is fair from Bertram, actually, but full-fledged astrology that goes beyond newspaper style sun sign horoscopes provides a powerful vocabulary to capture not only personality and temperament, but also life's challenges and opportunities. To the extent that one simply learns this vocabulary, it may be appealing as a rich way of representing, not explaining or predicting, human experiences and life events and identifying some possible paths of coping. What do you think? I mean, this is very different to what might have been written 10 or 20 years ago, to be fair.
You know what? It's an interesting one because I've recently come across lots of people talking about astrology, and there's like this snobbery about
no question
what the right type of astrology is, and what kind of astrology is carries more weight. And there's lots of people talking about human design right now and how that is the super duper sort of astrology that like blasts out all other astrology from the past. And how, and these people that write things like this, they always go straight to the horoscopes and pour scorn over them and kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But I think Bertram is wanting people to see that there is something limited about sun sign horoscopes. I mean, he's talking about full-fledged astrology.
Yeah.
And I think, this is I mean, what we're doing here, this is in no way a defense of astrology against the ravages of scientists, because what would you expect them to say in many ways, given how their world is constructed, generally speaking, social scientists especially.
I'm not a huge advocate for the scientific process as evidenced in recent times.
Quite.
Like maybe the whole idea of a scientific inquiry of let's set up some kind of test, let's look at statistics, let's look at a lot of data. I'm really into that. I love the idea of that. But people who say, "Oh, that doesn't have any."
Well, what's happening here is I'm going to try and squeeze this into my way of seeing the world. If it does, it's okay and I like it. If it doesn't, I told you it was unscientific and therefore not worthy. I think that's the flavor I get. And what's made it more difficult is that a lot of millennials now seem to be relating to astrology.
Oh my God, this is a really long article.
I told you it was. It's Atlantic. I mean, we're not going to read the whole thing.
Good. I don't want to go down the whole deep dive of it.
The interesting
like
thing,
though. I'm going to leave
the interesting thing is that we're seeing this connection to the millennial way of seeing the world and the appeal of astrology for millennials, and the scientists not being able, or social scientists here, and traditional narrative dictators, if you like, not necessarily being able to cope very well with that. That's what I'm seeing, and I find it fascinating. I really do.
I mean, I've left it on this image because I just think it's great, and if anything, it's really showing like a millennial brain trying to work things out.
Yes.
Because where they are right now, I mean, obviously each generation has quite a few integral patterns in them.
Yes.
But each generation has a series of patterns with the outer planets, which really describe a kind of mindset. And so earlier I was reading the chart of somebody born in 1969. A lot of my clients are born between 64 and 67. A lot of my not older clients, but most of my regular ones, and so I'm really familiar with those generational patterns. And very recently, I've got more calls to work with millennials. So I worked with somebody who was 23 this week, who's got, funnily enough, almost like an equal and opposite pattern to what was going on in the 60s, which I'm not surprised at, because the people from the 60s become the parents of the next generation down. So you often see these kind of big patterns showing up from generation to generation to generation. But what's going on right now with a lot of millennials is, for instance, there's some of the younger millennials have got Pluto coming into an alignment with their Neptune, which is getting them really thinking in terms of boundaries and spirituality, and the rights and wrongs of it, and also their place in the world. But there's loads of other sort of aspects, that are going on, with transiting planets, aspecting them, and it's kind of raising a new level of consciousness in them.
I love it, and what could be seen as the criticism of the millennials and Gen Z as their earnestness, and that they're they lead to lighten up a bit, kind of thing. Well,
sorry, go on.
On this, there's a light and a dark side to everything, isn't there?
Yeah.
And that's how I, certainly for me, being able to consider the other side of things, that rather than just have a cursory judgment about things, but think, okay, what if the wrongness of this to me is the rightness of it?
Yeah,
exactly. So my shorthand and my rather unfair treatment of millennials and Gen Z from my Gen X perspective. Oh, they need to lighten up, but they take things too seriously. They like rules. This is lovely. This is lovely how in their generation, they're finding astrology a tool for revelation and understanding. And their seriousness and earnestness, I think, is beautifully matched to this almost sort of forensic study of what makes them tick, helping them to understand a crazy world that they've like they should have issues with.
Of course they should.
Just because they're young, not necessarily historically. Yes, historically, but because they're young and questioning. Isn't it lovely that they are now seeming, as far as we can tell from this article and other, you know better than me, but it's taken the Atlantic to report to me about this millennial Gen Z interest in astrology, to see that they are dealing with it in a beautiful way compared to bringing it back to what we used to do in this slot, just trying to use astrology to get their end away, or some sort of very superficial thing, which is what a lot of the old hallmark of it.
A lot of the comments that I get on my YouTube videos, I think a lot of people put in details as to where their planets are. I've done a lot of videos about, Pluto through the 8th house and this, that, and the other. And so they often put in, oh, yeah, my Pluto's in the sign of Sagittarius. And I'm like, oh.
And who might have said that in the 70s and 80s?
Well, nobody. They would have been just living life and they wouldn't have had the opportunity to. But if you think about the context of the last few years and the levels of uncertainty, and now, every kind of identity is being turned upside down in a way that, I think we all kind of know who we are, but they're actually at an age where they may well not know what they are. And now there's all these narratives, talking about race, gender, all sorts. And then there's people talking about, medicine and pandemics and climate and all this. It's not a surprise that they might be seeking counsel. And there's a huge rise of millennial astrologers as well.
Yeah,
and they're the ones that are
and something a little bit exotic, esoteric, and something that their parents aren't interested in the way that for the human potential movement of the 60s and 70s, people tended to look towards the East. They were fascinated by Buddhism, weren't they? And Eastern ideas, and going to India. And I think it's lovely that Gen Z and millennials are finding something for themselves that one might appear to have been overlooked or undermined or underrated. And here they are picking up and running with it. And I think it's great.
Well, it's fascinating. Thank you for finding the article, and maybe I'll read all of it later. But
you won't get a chance to now unless you subscribe to the Atlantic, I think.
Barry saying, "Hi, all, just finished work. Did I miss out?" No, just people hanging out, Barry, just having fun.
He's a proper northerner now, isn't he? I mean, he's from the south of England, isn't he? Originally.
No.
Oh,
no. I mean, he spent most of his life up north. Right,
okay.
Barry?
Hence the miss. I mean, we might need to translate that for people in America,
no,
Barry.
I think people are okay.
Okay.
Did I miss anything?
Did I miss out? Sounds like somebody from Lord of the Rings, doesn't
right,
it?
We might have.
They weren't on the show.
We
earlier.
might have a picture from Owen coming up of the Perseids, from the Alan Tejo sent Perseids meteor shower. So we'll have to have a look for that. Can you have a? Let's see if we can find it. Did you send it to Carl's WhatsApp?
It'll be on the WhatsApp just there.
Let's just see if we can share that.
Good evening to you, Barry, by the way. And did you go to the Alentejo? Or this is a picture taken by somebody in the Alentejo, where it's the darkest part of Portugal, presumably.
Here we go.
Ooh, look at that beauty there. Oh, my word. They've got a scratched phone as well.
Wow, we've got an amazing photo that we're going to put on the screen.
Cheers, Owen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Owen. That's really special. Gillian saying getting our charts drawn was a huge task before the astrology site started. Hand drawing a chart was a massive task.
Yes,
it really was.
So when Julie Beck in the Atlantic is saying it's a great thing it's a great match, the millennial interest in astrology and the internet age. Fair comment.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just,
you don't have to get out your slide rule and log tables anymore, do you, when you're doing charts?
And actually, when I first started studying astrology, I had to draw everything by hand.
Right.
And it was a real pain in the backside. Because if you make a mistake, that's your chart looking really awful. Now that is amazing. That's an amazing photo.
With Tipex all over it.
Thank you so much. That's really incredible. So that is, just to reiterate, Perseids meteor shower just last night.
Beautiful.
That's remarkable. All right. Well, I think we should think about
going.
We're
not at a dinner party. That's what
we don't have to use our safe
that's
word,
what
do
British
we?
people do, like an hour before they, or when they want to go, but think, oh, it's a bit rude to say, I'm going to go
use a
now.
code
So they
word.
have to let everybody know in the room.
Yeah.
Well, they say to their partner, well, we should really think about going. There's the babysitter, etc. I don't think we have to do that here, do we?
No, we don't.
Right.
But I think things are changing in terms of astrology, and it's quite exciting, and who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Got a few more comments. So, in answer to your question, I am from many places. I am a man from England. You've been saying,
Let
wow.
it be known, I am a man from England. My name is Out.
Yes, I come from OWT. Wow, great photo. And then Gillian is saying, thanks so much to both of you. Have loved this. I'm sure our little bickering at the start was really cool as well. Well, thank you so much for joining.
We've had another studio change, haven't we?
Yeah.
And that's always a bit awkward for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You know, you suggest things, I think I've done them, and then the first thing you do is get mad and complain about what I think are the changes I've done for you.
Actually, I wasn't complaining. You were complaining. You came and sat next to me and started complaining on my
Projection.
show. Yeah.
Massive calling out of a projection there at the end of the show. Please help.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us wherever you came from. Remember, like right now, we've got this a kind of resetting of the love energy, a resetting of the energy of flow and connection. And that's what Venus retrograde is completely about. So like take a moment to think, where am I learning to reconnect right now? And that's where all the money's at. that's where we should focus on. So a couple more comments coming in. Good night, my lovelies, from Owen. Thank you for joining us. And Gillian saying, I'd start listening to the radio again if you two were presenting.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Gillian.
Yeah, well, Gillian, you know what?
Stay tuned.
We have got a new something coming up. So stay tuned. It will be announced in the next couple of weeks, but something is brewing. And it's very chatty. So anyway, lots of love to you all, and speak to you soon. Catch you another time. Bye for now.